Hi, welcome to MPP Global Solutions webinar, Driving the Dollars for Digital Gaming. My name's Ben Cattrall. I'll be your host this morning. I'm a Business Development Manager at MPP, and I will talk you through our presentation on the changing face of monetization in the games industry. Before we get into the webinar, there are a few housekeeping pointers to take note of. Firstly, at any point during the presentation, you have the ability to ask me a question. There are two ways in which you can do this. Both of these are actioned through the GoToWebinar dashboard on the right-hand side of your screen. If you want to ask an audio question, you can click the yellow hand to raise your hand, and we can then hand over audio control to you. If you prefer to use a text dialog box, the option is there on the right. Simply enter your question and click return. Later in the webinar, we will be running a poll to find out your opinions on some pressing matters in this space. The instructions around the poll will be presented on the screen at the relevant point. If you experience any technical issues during the webinar, we recommend closing down any streaming services like Skype or Dropbox. This should optimize your experience. We can now move to look at the content and the key areas that we will cover in today's webinar. And there are four key topics that we will discuss. The first topic is a look at the history of the gaming industry from 1976 right up to today, 2012. This will be followed by a look at the changing face of the business models used by companies in these sectors, specifically around the last 5 or 6 years. We will then look at 5 companies in the games industry and analyze different strategies they have in play. And finally, we will help you to look at how to pick the best model for you and perhaps more importantly, your gamers. So to start, we will take a quick look at the history of gaming. Gaming, as you're probably aware, first appeared in the mid-1970s through the arcade revolution. The infamous Pong game was introduced to the market in 1972 and soon after was followed by the first generation of games consoles which could be purchased and used in the home. Fast forward to 2012 and we are in generation 7 of games consoles, with machines on the market including the Sony PlayStation 3 and the Microsoft Xbox. Further still, Generation 8 is just around the corner with Nintendo's Wii U penciled for release later this summer. From 1976 right up to today, development of these consoles has followed a linear pattern. It's been quite simple. Each new release has superseded its predecessor in terms of processing power, the graphics engine, and the capacity of the storage media holding the game. This linear progression still accounts for the majority of income for the games sector, with peaks in the income rising in parallel to new releases and new product launches. The games industry is the major contributor to revenue in the whole of the media and entertainment sector, and as this slide illustrates, in 1982, the games industry made more than Hollywood and the music industry combined. Fast forward to today, and in 2012, the music industry is in decline, with both movies and games growing substantially, but the games industry still eclipsing that of films. So there's a quick look at how the games industry has developed from the early days right up until today. What we will do now is look at how the strategies and the monetization models that the companies involved have changed as well. So, as discussed, there's been a linear trend in terms of development, and this has followed through in terms of monetization. Console manufacturers, the likes of Sega, Nintendo, Sony, and Microsoft have simply developed new consoles to replace the old. In recent years, however, new models have emerged, and this has brought with it an abundance of new players to the market. Triggered by the snake-led revolution on Nokia handsets in the 1990s, new subsectors of gaming have been created, including mobile gaming, social gaming, and casual gaming. The likes of Apple, Facebook, and Android are now players in this market. Users of these games do not have to purchase any devoted hardware. They simply have to own a smartphone or have a membership to a social networking site. For many, this has taken gaming out of the walled garden, traditionally associated with hardcore gamers, and open up the industry to everybody, effectively making every single person a gamer. This emergence can be further illustrated by the growth in digital sales and conversely the drop in physical sales. This chart illustrates in 2009 and then the move to 2011, a drop in physical sales by 11%. Conversely, digital sales, including those of mobile games, have grown at the same rate. It is fair to say that this rise has been driven by the surge in connected devices and a more easily accessible internet experience. If we take a further look into these figures and break them down a step further, we can see that each individual subsector previously mentioned, social gaming, casual gaming, and mobile gaming, are all growing at an impressive rate year on year. And it's amazing to think that just 10 years ago, none of these industries even existed. It's also worth noting that this graph shows that no single business model is the most successful. Different models and different strategies seem to work better for different subsectors. So that's a look at the business models from a traditional gamer's perspective. We'll now look at the developers and how this area of the market has changed. So in the traditional model, the linear model we've discussed previously, it was a lengthy and costly route to market for developers. They had to think up a game, develop the game, take it to a publisher, who would then pass it to a distributor, onto a retailer who would sell it to the end user. This long, lengthy process is no longer, with a new model coming to the fore. With open source SDKs and mountains of online resources, a number of bedroom developers have sprung up, and they can quite simply develop their app and take it direct to consumer. So from conception to consumer on their own, with no reliance on the distributors or publishers. A business model we've seen championed by these new players is freemium. The concept of freemium is very simple. A user can download a game for free. They're then free to play that game for as long as they choose. In the free version, it's likely they will experience a slower game with less functionality, restricted numbers of users, and an altogether fractured experience. What these game developers offer, though, is a paid-for alternative. If the user decides to pay, they will experience a faster, fuller, and greatly improved gaming experience. It's a very simple logic. Get the user to play for free, get them hooked to the game, and then upsell an experience and a beneficial experience to them. Usually it's a nominal low price point. Another new revenue stream that has piggybacked onto the social, mobile, and casual gaming revolution is in-game purchasing. In this example, a user purchases content for use in the game, in this example a shield. They can then use this purchase themselves, or they can gift it to a friend or a co-player. Many games developers and games publishers use this model as a supplementary means to their core model of maybe subscriptions or a one-off purchase to buy the game in the first place. This new industry is expected to be worth $14 billion this time next year. So as you can see, a huge growth area that didn't exist 5 years ago. So that's a quick look at some of the strategies in use today across the industry. What we will look at now are some specific points with specific companies in focus. The first of these will be Sony's PlayStation and the PlayStation Store on the PS3. The PlayStation Store allows users to purchase archived content from earlier PS1 and PS2 models, new releases they could also buy in traditional gaming outlets, as well as downloadable content for add-ons to the games they've already bought. PlayStation and Sony have chosen to use a prepaid wallet solution. Quite a simple setup. The consumer makes an account, they add funds to their prepaid wallet, and every time they make a purchase, they draw down against the overall balance of their wallet. As you can see from the screenshot, this has proved very successful for Sony, with revenues up 70% year on year. It is also worth noting that of the top 10 purchases from the PlayStation Store, 8 of the products are add-ons to existing purchases. For example, map packs for Call of Duty. The next example to look at is a subscription model as championed by Activision Blizzard's title World of Warcraft. Warcraft is a massively multiplayer online RPG game which has in excess of 11 million users worldwide. Each of these users must pay a a monthly subscription in the region of $10 for access to the game. Combine this with in-game purchasing of add-ons such as swords and shields, as already illustrated, Activision Blizzard's income from Warcraft exceeds $2 billion. The next example we'll look at is Electronic Arts' long-standing title, The Sims. The Sims has been on the market for the best part of 10 years, and in this time they've stuck to their guns and used the same real-time purchasing model that they've used from day one. Traditionally, this was to buy the CD in-store, go home and install it on your PC. You can now make the same purchase via download services such as Steam, or you can make purchases in-game for additional content, upgrade packs, etc. This traditional model has been working well for EA for the past 10 years, bringing in over $2.5 billion in revenue. The fourth example we'll look at is a prime example of the freemium model already discussed, and this is in the form of Rovio's Angry Birds game. I'm sure everybody in the webinar today will be familiar with Angry Birds and the huge success it has experienced. Currently, Angry Birds is available on all smartphone platforms, all games consoles, and even built into a number of PC-based browsers. Across all of these different platforms, the user experiences a centralized account, so their progress in the game is remembered and the experience travels with them between devices. Angry Birds has exceeded 1 billion downloads now, and a statistic that may surprise many is that 47% of these downloads are for the paid-for version with the better gaming experience. This has led to Angry Birds generating in excess of $100 million worth of profit. Angry Birds also supplement this income with physical merchandise and a recently announced upcoming Hollywood film. The final case study today looks at Zynga, the social gaming company who've championed in-game payments. Zynga are relatively new to the scene, and they've grown exponentially since their launch and are now listed on the NASDAQ exchange in New York. Zynga create games for the Facebook platform utilizing virtual currencies, allowing people to purchase for their own game and for other people's gaming experiences. Zynga accounts for 15% of all of Facebook's revenue, and within 4 years of its incorporation had overtaken Electronic Arts in terms of the revenue generated. So there's a quick snapshot of the different models being used by some of the big players in the industry. What we'd like to do now is take a quick poll to gather your opinions on the way the industry is headed. And the question we'll pose today is on the screen right now. In a market increasingly dominated by casual and social gaming, do you feel that Generation 8 consoles can still compete? So if you just want to enter your answers into the screen, and I'll report back with the findings a little later in the webinar. Okay, that should be enough time. So moving on to the final section of the webinar, how to choose the right model. As we have seen, there are an array of different strategies for games companies today. PlayStation Network utilized the wallet model, Warcraft have stuck to subscriptions, The Sims uses real-time purchasing, and the new casual and social games tend to go for freemium and in-app purchases. For all of these models, MPP are able to support the models in question. MPP are the leading provider of advanced payment services and e-commerce solutions to the media and entertainment sectors, enabling and combining all of the models we've looked at using our eSuite product. eSuite is a highly robust, technology-agnostic framework of modules which can be tailored to meet complex requirements. It's not just payment processing, it also provides the tools to analyze the performance of the chosen model, allowing you to make seamless switches between if necessary. Our newly launched eHQ module provides a number of analytics and reporting functionality, allowing for detailed interrogation of the figures in whichever manner you choose. eHQ, as a standard feature, tracks uptake, churn, and reports on financial data. It also allows marketeers within your organization to generate offers and incentives on the fly for use within games. That's a very quick introduction to eSuite and the eHQ product. Happy to elaborate further on the capabilities of eSuite and MPP as a whole offline after this session. So we'll provide contact details at the end of the webinar. Now I just want to have a look at the poll results to see who agrees that social and casual gaming really are a threat to the traditional gaming models. So on the screen now we should see the results. And it's an unsure one. Nobody really knows which way it's going to go, but certainly nobody thinks that social and casual gaming will compete to any massive level with the traditional models. The traditional models are here, they're successful, they're turning over huge revenues, and by the look at it, people feel they are here to stay. So in short, although casual and social gaming do cause a threat, they will never overtake the traditional linear model we have looked at on several occasions. So now over to you guys in the audience and any questions anybody has for me. As mentioned at the start, there are two ways to ask. You can raise your hand by clicking the little hand icon in the dashboard, or alternatively you can enter a question as text in the chat box. Okay, so question from Ian asking, for a company entering the social gaming market, which business model would I recommend? Okay, so let's have a think. Tricky question from Ian. There's no definitive answer, that's for sure. I would really say it depends on the circumstances under which Ian or his company are operating. Which platforms will the game be released on? The content of the game, the type of game, the target demographic of the game, the location into which the game is based. There are lots of things to consider. What I would say to Ian is that to help you make up this decision, I'd recommend speaking to a monetization specialist such as MPP, who can analyze your project in detail and provide analysis and evidence of which model is likely to work for you and propose a solution based upon your exact requirements. Other than that, it's very difficult to say one or the other. So are there any other questions? I hope that answered Ian's question for him. Anybody else got anything they'd like to ask? Okay, so thank you for your time today exploring the changing face of the games industry and the opportunities that exist for companies and entrepreneurs in this space. As already mentioned, I'm happy to continue the conversation offline, and my contact details will appear on the screen shortly. Thank you again, and enjoy the rest of your day.